It can only be attributable to human error.
You're entering paranormal.
He meddled in things that you think
Where will we go next? This phantom from another time.
No one, Mr. Mulder.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
That is one big pile of shit.
Hi everyone, I'm monastic Kaiju, to my left,
Jasmine with.
and across,
Eli Watson.
and off to the side,
Stephen Myers.
and we are
Cryptid Campfire. And we
Merry Christmas!
There you go.
Hey.
Jasmine stole the words from my mouth.
Sorry.
It's Christmas
But
time.
It's Christmas time. At least it's Christmas Eve, which means you're gonna get a present tomorrow, hopefully from someone that you love.
Ooh, and hopefully it's
Here's
not
hoping.
Cole. Hopefully you've been good this year.
Yeah, hopefully.
Or Krampus is gonna come.
Uh-oh.
However, Krampus is not the subject of our conversation today, but we are going to be revisiting one of the creatures that we've already discussed in one of our previous tomes. Was it Tome 1?
It was Tome 1,
Yeah.
Episode 5, actually.
Really?
Was it? Or was
I
it
think-
Episode
What?
7?
I think
It was Episode 7.
7, yeah.
I'm gonna
Oh,
double check
Is it
right
really
now.
that long ago?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, it's insane.
Well, today we are talking about the Yeti.
The Yeti.
Yeti.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, and Stefan is joining us for this one because he wasn't here for our last Yeti episode.
He wasn't even born yet.
Yeah.
I
isn't
don't
that
think that's
wild?
But we're probably gonna be repeating a little bit of information for those who haven't listened to our first Yeti episode. There's gonna be some new information. Hopefully, we'll discover some things together, all in the Christmas spirit.
I think it'll
Oh,
be a
yeah.
fun companion piece to the old school Yeti episode we did.
A fun redemption of myself.
Oh.
Yeah, truthfully, if you go back and listen to our first Yeti episode, it sounds like I don't want to be there.
I think it's a good episode. I listened to
It's a
them.
hot mess, just admit it.
No.
It really is.
It's my heart and soul.
I don't have any facts. I'm just like, yeah, some guy found some footprints by a bulldozer. I think. I don't know.
Well, that was
Some
his
people think it's
name.
real, some people don't. I don't
His
know what to
name
say.
was Stuart Guy, and he went by S. Guy. Some guy.
Anyways,
It's a very elaborate joke.
Thank you. And we're off to a good start, everybody. But yeah, so where do you want to take this? Where does the Yeti live?
so just a little bit of geography. I know that this is not my strong suit. That's why I try to make sure
Redemption.
everyone listening knows what we're talking about. So the Himalayas are a mountain range that passes through India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, China, Bhutan, and Nepal. The mountain range includes Mount Everest, which is the highest peak on Earth, standing at about, and I say about,
Because it's continually changing.
it is continually changing and it's inconsistent in research, but it's about 29,029 feet high. And the Yeti is said to roam between the tree line and the permanent snow at 14,000 to 20,000 feet.
Real quick, is it changing size?
It's
Everest?
getting taller.
Taller?
But now they think it might be getting smaller because of global warming is melting some of the snow.
I was gonna say, is it?
But it's because the tectonic plates in that region keep pushing it up higher and higher every year. So,
Oh, okay, interesting.
which means if I were to climb it, it would take me to heights far beyond Edmund Hillary's.
Ooh, right in his face.
Just kidding.
Let them have it.
I was gonna say, like, what if Everest was getting smaller because they keep mining it for the Himalayan sea salt lamps that everyone has nowadays?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you imagine? Someone's like, I've climbed it 3 times this year. You're like, okay, yeah, nice.
It's not possible, actually, because, check it, I know some facts about Mount Everest. It's a 3-month journey up and a 3-month journey down, so it'll take you a full 6 months to do Mount Everest. That's something I would like to do one day, but I don't...
Have fun!
Yeah, I think it would be kind of tight.
That'd be crazy.
Like staying up there to acclimate for a bit and then going?
Yeah, I
Like
did.
they do?
Just don't eat the yellow snow.
Yeah. And then there was actually rumors, I found this out during my Yeti research, that there was rumors of a mountain taller than Mount Everest back in the old days. When they were still like, oh, the Himalayas, so foreign, so unique, you know?
But it was the big mountain sank and became Atlantis?
No. In the middle of the Himalayas, dude?
Yeah, you never know.
All right.
They had the crystal powers.
But
the vortices.
I think that covers the geography pretty well, though.
Yeah, the origin of the word Yeti, however, Also, kind of inconsistent. There's a lot of speculation about where the word actually comes from. There's like 3 different examples that I found. What did you guys find?
Well, I just remember in our last episode we had like 5 to 7 different types of, because it's Yeti, which is I want to say Serpa word for wild man.
Yeti.
Yeah.
Means, I think it means all-devouring demon.
Oh.
I did not get that.
I did. It's some pretty crazy stuff. I got that in Ivan Sanderson's book, Abominable Snowman, Legend Come to Life.
And you.
What? No. Just Legend Come to Life. He's very upset at the naming of there is no like one name for a Yeti.
Mm-hmm.
Like Yeti is the Anglicanization of a mixture of words, and it's kind of like Sasquatch. There's really no one word.
Gotcha.
It's just a bunch of different names, because
Okay.
all the different villages have different names for it. India has a different name for it. China has a different name for it. Nepal, Tibet, don't even get into that. It's just like pretty wild, but...
Yeah. There's the Sherpa word, yete, meaning small man-like animal, or medi, meaning bear. And then they also say that it's a merger of the Sherpa words ya, meaning rock and cliff, and te, meaning animal. And then some researchers have also deduced that the term comes from the Sanskrit word yaksha, meaning nature spirit. So there's a lot of different possibilities on where this one 4-letter word comes from.
Interesting. Yeah, I got, according to Bernard Heuvelmans, he says yete means all-devouring demon.
That's
intense.
one that did not come up on mine.
Well, it's because the Yeti, as we'll see, because I'm going to go into it a little bit later, but they're not like a good thing. It's like an omen of bad luck.
Yep.
Like if you see one, it's like shit. You know?
Oh, this is grown-up Cryptid Campfire.
I know. It's just...
You see when you gotta go cut a rabbit's foot off, dude.
Oh,
Hanging around your neck.
That's funny. We'll bring that up later.
But okay, so Yeti, it evolves from like weird small man over there, maybe rock animal, to all-devouring demon.
There's a bear somewhere over there in between.
Yeah, bear threatening for good measure. Which I mean, aren't bears just demons that eat things anyway? Bears are scary.
Demons. They're omnivorous.
They're pretty scary though.
They will kill you.
Oh, I know, horrifying.
Yeah. I like bears.
No,
I would
they're
never
awesome.
want to be close to one though.
Especially Winnie the Pooh.
I feel like that's pretty rational.
Yeah.
So what does the Yeti look like?
He's white. He has blue skin.
False. False.
He's big and roly-poly, and he gives love and kisses, and he hugs, and...
Oh, dear.
But yeah,
truthfully, there's not... I mean, there's like 3 different possible colors for the Yeti. It's like...
There's actually 3 different possible species of the Yeti as well. And they all kind of coincide.
Do they all match with the different colors?
Mm-hmm. They
really?
do.
They're color-coded?
They are color-coded, actually.
Well, because what is it? There is the possibility of white, but there's also gray, and there's also like a red-brown, right?
Yeah, there's black, gray, and reddish-brown, and there's 2 different variants that are black-gray.
Interesting.
Kind of. But yeah. I'll get into it. It's all gonna like... It's rough. This Yeti research is like disjointed. But it's going to come together. I'm going to try my best.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
much like the names of the Yeti, it's disjointed and kind of all over the place.
I do have this report from Bernard Heuvelmans in his book On the Track of Unknown Animals. And he has a Sherpa description of what the Yetis look like. And so this is what I have here. The snowman is a huge creature, half man, half beast. It lives in caves, high and inaccessible in the mountains. The skin of its face is white. The body is covered with a thick coat of dark hair. Its arms, like those of the anthropoid apes, reach down to its knees, but its face looks rather more human. Its thick legs are bowed. Its toes turn inwards. Some even say they turn backwards.
Whoa.
It is very muscular and can uproot trees and lift up boulders of remarkable size. The female can be recognized by her long breasts, which she throws over her shoulders when she runs. So there's that fun fact coming back from Alex's book.
So they're dummy thick.
Dummy.
But it is important to note because we talked a little bit more in depth about this in our last episode about the Yeti, but the Yeti and the Sasquatch are two different things, not just because of the place that they're found and that they live, like the climate that they're in, but also because, you know, Sasquatch is kind of compared as like a
apes.
humanoid ape,
Yeah.
while the Yeti is more of like a bear.
Yeah,
Like a
Humanoid.
bear man.
as we'll
Yeah.
see though, he's kind of more Sasquatch-like, but there are some.
But they got
differences.
backwards feet. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, no, they don't. But
Oh, no.
it's pretty wild that they would say that though.
So the origin of the Yeti comes from a lot of pre-Buddhist religions and legends and things like that. It can be traced back to the early indigenous people of the Himalayas known as the Lepcha, who in our previous episode we incorrectly pronounced as Lepka. It is the ch sound and not the k sound. So the Lepcha people,
Apologies.
yeah,
I know where they listen to our podcast, so we do apologize.
They worshipped the glacier being as god of the hunt and ruler of the forest creatures. The Yeti is also an ancient part of the history of the Sherpa. These are people that live at an average altitude of like 12,000 feet in eastern Nepal.
I bet they have big lungs.
Probably.
They do all the yodeling.
What I thought was interesting, there's a lot of spiritual ceremonies that took place in order to like receive protection from the glacier being. And one of the religious rituals involved, this is what I think is weird, the mixing of the glacier being's precious blood with mustard and poison to create a magical concoction.
Whoa! And what does it give you?
I have no idea.
It makes sriracha sauce.
It just, like, I don't know what the concoction does. I don't know what the ritual is for. And I also don't know where the blood comes from. Because if they're saying that they use this Yeti blood in rituals, like, did they capture a Yeti? Like, where's the proof?
They're just hoping he stepped on a rock and there's blood on there.
They just
Yes!
They leave Legos everywhere.
So it's interesting to me that even though this creature was seen as, you know, divine, he was also like a real physical entity.
Well, yeah, because I don't know. From reading, I skipped over a bunch of Sherpa sightings that Bernard Heuvelmans had received.
Because there were a lot of secondhand accounts, right? When
Yeah,
you
a
did-
lot. But seeing a Yeti was almost like a common thing. Like almost everyone saw a Yeti at one point in their life, which
In
is
that community?
in that community, living out there. I mean, statistically, they are the most probable people to see a Yeti. So I mean,
Makes sense.
I think we've mentioned that sometimes to where like around the world to us we're like, oh man, there's a crazy monster running around.
yeah.
But out there they're like, that's just it's life.
Well,
It's-
yeah.
it's
There's a story. The giant panda was only discovered in China in 1936, and that was not discovered, but taken out of China in 1936. And the reason they found it, because it was this group of people, they went out in the jungles looking for it, didn't find anything, returning back, they stopped by this village, and one of the villagers had a baby panda, was just chilling with it. And that's how they found it.
They're like, what is that?
So, like, if anyone's going to find the Yeti one day, it's going to be like, oh, look, they just have a baby pet Yeti.
A
Like,
baby Yeti. Could you imagine too if they were like, so they go to China and someone's just chilling with a baby panda, like, wow, like, we'll take it.
yeah.
And like, oh, this thing's awesome. It's super cute. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger. Like, oh God, when will it stop?
That's you were talking about a panda just now.
Yeah.
Well, there's actually a Yeti legend that talks about the growth of a Yeti, like just significantly getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Oh gosh.
It's one of the two legends that I read about in my research, which honestly, like, they're so weird. Like, they don't have anything to do with like the Yeti being dangerous or anything like that. So one of them is it's a real simple story. But it's, like, so strange. It's a legend about a man who just comes across a Yeti. You know, he's out and about doing whatever, and he just happens upon a Yeti who is just growing directly in front of his eyes.
What?
So
Well, it's like that grow a Sasquatch thing you got.
basically, so the Yeti's height increased at the speed of the rising sun. So as the sun came up, the Yeti grew and grew and grew, and this is where it just gets even weirder. Apparently, as this man watched the Yeti grow, he found himself losing energy and winds up falling unconscious. And that's the end of the story.
Oh, no.
Wait, so did he die?
I don't know.
He fell asleep.
He just falls
So
unconscious.
He fell asleep in the snow?
I guess.
And lived to tell the tale? I mean, wow.
I don't know.
I mean, that's crazy, too, because you figure... So the sun's rising, the not Bigfoot, the Yeti's getting bigger and bigger. You think when the sun sets, it, like, just starts shrinking?
It goes back to the other size.
It's just like, oh, no, I gotta wait 8 more hours to get big again. It's like a tiny baby Yeti running around.
Did you get any legends or mythology, Stefan?
No, you pretty much said all the ones I had.
Dang it, I gotta stop talking so much.
Well,
No, you're fine.
say them again, Stefan.
Did you-
Do we have like an average height for them or anything?
I read 6 feet, but I also read 8 feet.
I mean,
So
I guess
between that-
depending on how high the sun is, too, they can be the size of a skyscraper.
Did you,
What about you
I
guys?
guess I'll go into this. So
is this another legend?
No. I guess this is like going to the average height type thing.
Okay.
So this comes from Ivan Sanderson's book, where he divides the Yetis into like 4 different types.
Okay.
So we have the Mete, ape-like or man-like, and that's the regular Yeti that we think of, and that's like 7 to 8 feet tall.
The
Okay.
basic model.
Yeah, the basic, it's very Sasquatch in appearance. But then we also have the pygmy version, which is the Te Lama, and that's 4 to 5 feet tall, red hair, and it's omnivorous. And so the footprints are like 5 to 7 feet, or 5 to 7 inches, sorry. Imagine
They're
them.
like 4 feet tall with like 5 feet. They're just like slipping around.
Yeah, but I think that's interesting because Jasmine kind of mentioned like the mini ones earlier with the red hair.
Mhm.
So that's
And that's weird too that the red hair shows up on the Yetis because
Yeah.
red hair shows up on like weird cryptids every so often.
it shows up on Sasquatch especially too, which I think is cool. But there's the Zute, aka the hulking thing, which is taller and bulkier than the Mete. He's got a black shaggy coat and he leaves footprints like a man, but with 2 subdigital pads, kind of like a Sasquatch with the 2 like parts of the foot, the 2 balls of the feet.
Because I think we talked about with Bigfoot, his ankles don't really move. It's more the feet, like a gorilla's, to where they're like little hand feet that bear the weight.
And so that's what Sanderson is saying is happening to this bigger one, which kind of reminds me of the Nielmo. I brought that up in the last Yeti episode.
The big giant.
I couldn't find anything more on that because I didn't know how to
No.
spell it.
Oh, it's Nyalmo.
Definitely not what I typed in.
I mean, all you need to know about the Nielmo is they're like, what, 20 feet tall?
Yeah.
They shake trees,
Trees.
and there's little baby versions that, like, clap around
Yeah,
them.
they form the ring around the big ones that are shaking trees.
They're like, this is the best thing we've ever seen.
Why do they shake the trees?
Yeah, why?
I think it's like a dominance thing. Watch. I didn't get any research on it because I knew there wasn't anything more.
They all just applaud.
I mean, it's just like, it's like humble brag. Check this out. He starts shaking the tree.
Weird flex, but okay.
Yeah.
But then there's also type number 4, and so this is probably going to be the least discussed one, but it's a monkey of some kind because the mountain. So the way we Westerners break up the Himalayas is very different from the people who live in the Himalayas. They break it up differently. So by like people who live in like Nepal and Tibet, Mount Everest is not part of the Himalayas. That's its own mountain range.
Okay.
And that mountain range is called the Range of Mountains. Oh, wait, what? There we go.
The
I'm sorry.
Himalayas.
This
I'm so
mountain
sorry.
range is called
So-
the Range of Mountains.
I'm so sorry.
Okay.
It's called the Mountain of the Great Monkeys. So
That's what Mount
Ooh.
Everest is called?
that whole range that they call it, and it's the Indians who call it that.
Yeah, that's
not
where Jungle
them.
Book takes place. I'm just kidding.
Oh, I mean, that's a cool name. That's where, like, King Louis lives.
But
But he's like a
exactly.
big giant Orthopithecus, like, giant gorilla that, like, eats other monkeys.
Here's the thing, though, because the Indians, they still recognize the Yeti as being a thing, but distinctly mark it as the Mountains of the Great Monkeys as being a different thing. And so there's a lot of actually monkeys in China that are like macaques and stuff that have really short tails that you probably wouldn't notice. because they're really hidden by their fur, and they also they kind of walk bipedally.
What do they look like?
They're like pink.
Oh, they're pink with the white fur, right?
Yeah.
Oh, those are the.
But no, there's bigger ones.
Oh,
there's
okay.
like bigger monkeys out there.
Oh, because I know
China.
those are the ones. There's the hot springs, right? I think.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
like
but these are different ones.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
I just picture monkeys hanging out in a hot spring.
Yeah.
It's funny.
It's true, but they do it. But these ones also walk bipedally because they don't want to get their hands cold. They don't like it in their hands cold.
And
which
they
is a
haven't
pretty interesting thing.
developed mitten technology yet.
And so what Ivan Sanderson is suggesting is that there's another sort of really large macaque out there that is in the range of monkeys.
Ooh.
The mountain range of monkeys.
And that's the glacier being
Yeah.
the god of the mountain.
Yeah, that's what I got.
You mentioned earlier about how like the Yeti is like not a good thing. It's like a bad omen or whatever. And this is true for most of the stories because children in particular were like meant to be the target audience of a lot of these stories and these warnings to dissuade them from like wandering off on their own. And it was also a storytelling technique to warn people not to engage with wild animals. But because there was a lot of dangerous animals to approach out in that climate. But this kind of ties into the other legend that I read about, which is, again, I don't get it because it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And I would like to believe that these Sherpa communities and these Lepcha, natives are smart and, but here's what this...
All right,
well,
tell us what it is.
Here's what this legend is.
It's not
build
so
up.
much about how much sense it makes, but it's about how it makes you feel.
Okay, well, how does this make you feel? Let me tell you this story. It's called The Annihilation of the Yeti.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's the story of a community of Sherpas who decided that they would attempt to get revenge on a group of Yetis who had been mercilessly tormenting them for some time.
Oh, I have this story.
Their plan of action was to get drunk and fight each other in the hopes that the Yetis would follow suit and do the same to themselves.
No, that's not what I got at all.
That's what I got.
It's a good plan.
No, it's not. It's not.
Their plan, their plan was literally to drink a lot of alcohol and then proceed to engage in a choreographed fight, like a fake fight amongst themselves, to trick the Yeti into doing the same thing. The hopes was that the Yeti would follow suit and wind up destroying one another, but the plan didn't succeed, obviously.
Yeah, the Yeti were fake hitting each other too.
But the Yetis, they weren't fooled, and instead of defeating each other, they actually continued their expedition higher up on the mountains, wreaking havoc on even more Sherpa communities. I got that from a Tibet travel website as well as the BBC.
Oh,
That's where that
interesting. Oh, maybe I
info
got
comes
a
from.
different story. It's very similar.
It's very possible that there's
Wow.
another version of the story.
Yeah, well, here we go. So, it comes from a Sherpa named Sen Ten Singh, and he'll come up later, actually. He's a big part of this story. He actually helped Edmund Hillary a couple times, guided him through the Himalayas towards Mount Everest and everything. And his story here is that there was these Yetis, these snowmen is what he called them, in Tibet that were stealing, like, this one particular village. They were stealing their crops, smashing, like, outhouses, like, tearing up their clothes when they left them out to dry, tearing roofs off houses, like, just crazy stuff. So what the villagers did is they put out these bowls of chang, which is like beer, and left them out there for the Yetis, hoping they would take them and drink them.
And the Yetis would get
And
drunk.
the Yetis got super drunk and passed out. And so when they were all passed out, they slaughtered them like animals.
Ooh.
Yeah.
They went full Anakin Skywalker.
That
did.
sounds more like the annihilation of the Yeti.
Well,
Yeah, that's why I
I
was
don't
like,
know where
what's going on?
there might be an overlap
well,
somewhere.
there's gotta be. I'm assuming because you figure in your story, they're like, oh, we're gonna get drunk and play fight, and then the Yetis will get drunk. I don't know if the Yetis were just like imitating what they saw, and they're like, okay, well, what if we imitate killing each other? Because there's got to be a thing to where like, oh, they put something out, and then the Yetis started doing stuff with that too, and they maybe started mimicking what the Sherpas were doing, and they're like, well, we could try this plan and see if it works.
Yeah.
Maybe they were like, monkey
don't know.
see, monkey do.
Yeah.
But guess what? That trick doesn't work on apes.
Oh, I know. It's a
So-
different biological region classification.
It was just my version of the story was just so weird to me because like it doesn't really make any sense, but it came from like a pretty valid source of information, the BBC, and so I was
I mean, I don't know. Maybe the moral of the story is just the folly of man.
Yeah. Imagine how dumb they look. Just fake fun.
That's what I'm saying.
Well, what if like the Eddies were like, "This is awesome"? They're like, that was like the start of wrestling, like for professional wrestling.
Is that why they're
wrestling,
shaking
dude.
the trees, dude?
Maybe
They're all like clapping around this village.
He's got his little cronies cheering him on. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy too. Just could you picture just like Yetis just like smashing outhouses? Because they're walking around. They're like, oh, what's this wooden structure? They smash it. And they're like, oh my god, it smells like feces. Get it off.
So when us good old Westerners started traveling to the Himalayas, this is where the myth of the Yeti and the legends of the Yeti kind of grew into something more like monstrous and sensational. Like this is when people started trying to find the Yeti rather than trying to avoid it and do what the legends say and, you know, err on the side of safety. They instead decided, let's go catch it.
No, these are the same people who conquered America, okay? They can conquer anything.
Sure.
They're like, we're gonna get on that mountain. We're gonna find these big drunk monkeys, and we're gonna give them what for.
Ignorance is bliss, baby.
They're the same people who saw all those like super tall trees in the redwoods and were like, yeah, you know what that would do? That would make a really nice house, you know? Just
gonna make a nice outhouse.
nice outhouse.
That was my way of segueing into talking about expeditions.
No, yeah, I know. I'm
Okay.
just looking at my notes.
He's sifting through.
I'm sifting through. So I guess the first thing I want to make mention of is that anything in the 1800s for a Westerner traveling to Nepal or to Tibet, it was very difficult coming over there and saying you were exploring the area because they didn't like that. Because there's like a whole complicated history of Nepal and Tibet that I did not want to get into, so I didn't, but just know that it was difficult, and they had to pose like they were merchants, or that they were, I forget what the other one was. They're like, you know, basically they're like, yeah, we're here to sell goods, and then they would be like, psych, I'm here to hunt the Yeti.
Like, I'm here to sell my
undercover, dude.
Yeah, that's crazy, you know? They're just
That's
like,
pretty sweet.
They're like, hey, check out this tchotchke crap I got for you.
He's got like a trench coat with like watches in there. He's like, check it out.
You guys need a watch.
So in 1899, a book called Among the Himalayas was published by a guy named Major L.A. Waddell.
Oh.
I called him Waddle.
Yeah, Waddle.
Yeah, Waddle, but I think it's Waddell.
Ah, what the hell? He's Waddle from now on.
But his encounter takes place 10 years before 1899, so in 1889.
Okay.
He was in the Himalayas, and he found some footprints in the snow leading up into the mountains, and his guides told him that the tracks were made by an ape, but Waddell concluded that it was made by a bear. Because because he felt like it.
Because he was a contrarian.
Yeah. But even before that, sorry.
That's why we're calling him Waddle, because he was kind of an ass.
Yeah, maybe. Before that, in 1832, according to the Journal of the Asiatic Society of Bengal, B.H. Hodgson, while in northern Nepal, his native guides spotted a tall bipedal creature covered in long dark hair that fled in fear when they saw it, or when it had realized it had been seen. And although Hodgson himself did not see the creature, he concluded that it was an orangutan.
He's like the one guy who's looking in the other direction and be like, oh, wow, look at that shrub over there. And they're just like, wow, there's a big old monkey over there. What? Oh, I missed it.
It was an orangutan. I've seen those before.
Never in the snow.
But here we go. So
orangutans don't even live in that area, right?
No, they don't. So
that's the big thing. Is he's just like, it's orangutan living here right now.
I mean, he's pretty asinine, dude.
Pretty Waddle.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, that's Hodgkins.
Yeah, that's Hodgson. Yeah.
Whatever. They're all the same. Yeah. They're all the same plebe.
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. It's the 1920s. So, during the first attempt to scale Mount Everest in 1921, Colonel Howard Bury was traversing the pass at Lapkala when he and his companions saw dark spots moving over the snow in the far distance. And a day or so later, they reached the spot about 20,000 feet up. Like, the elevation is pretty wicked high, actually, now that you said that Everest is 29,000 feet.
That's crazy. So that's like halfway, huh? Or a little less?
23,000, 29,000 feet.
Yeah.
That's like a 6,000 foot difference. It's definitely not halfway.
You just say numbers and I'm like, huh? What?
All right.
Yeah, it's getting pretty thin up there, dude.
I've been drinking a lot of salt water. We've been in the ocean for a while.
I know. And now we're in the snow. So they got to this spot 20,000 feet up in the and they found enormous human-shaped footprints, roughly 3 times the size of a normal human footprint. Bury attributed them to a wolf, like a loping wolf with like one leg, but the natives were not convinced, and they were sure the footprints came from the Meto Kangami. Again, another name, a.k.a. the abominable snowman.
Oh, no.
False. Correct.
False, correct. It is false that it means abominable snowman. Yeah. So this abominable snowman term came from a mistranslation of that word. And it happened because of this guy named Henry Newman. So he was a contributor for an Indian English language newspaper, The Statesman, in Calcutta. And he interviewed the people who were on this expedition led by Bury. And he saw the prints, said, you know, he thinks it's a wolf. The natives were like, no, it's this. So Newman hears this word. Can you pronounce it for me again?
Was it Meto?
The Meto Kangami.
Yeah, which actually translates to...
You damn filthy ape.
Oh, no.
Meto actually translates to unwashed. And the second part, Kangmi, or whatever you said.
Kangami, yeah.
Translates to either man-bear or snowman. Yeah. So the first part is what was incorrectly translated because it means unwashed, but I don't know. He just decided to use a different word.
Yeah, it's like filthy snowman, but also the word Kingami is not the word that the Sherpas were using.
Correct.
It's Bury's like mistranslation. They were saying Kongmi.
Yeah,
which
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It was like it's like a completely fabricated like name.
What
Damn
was
Westerners, dude.
Oh, and what were they
real.
saying? What was the word they were?
Kongmi. I think it just means like beast or something.
Oh, okay.
But like,
could you
I think
imagine
animal.
if instead of abominable, he's like, it's the dirty snowman, and that just took off.
Yeah. Well, he wanted to, instead of using the word that it was supposed to be, he just decided he wanted to use the word abominable because it sounded better.
He spiced it up for the newspaper.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, what if instead of snowman he used man bear, so it was the abominable man bear of the Himalayas?
Wouldn't be catchy, dude.
But it is funny, just because, you know.
You don't see me saying man bear right now, dude.
The abominable snowman is like so much talked about in pop culture, and it's like what's used in, you know, movies and things like that, but it doesn't even come from an actual thing.
It's just a mistranslation.
Which is so much of
again,
history.
dude.
So much of history and cryptozoology legends are just straight up mistranslations or misunderstandings.
Of the original.
I mean, even like the reason why we call Native Americans Indians is because Christopher Columbus thought he landed in India.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, they're not Indians. No. Why are we calling them that? You know? But anyways, so again, going back to the Yeti as a bad omen, a lot of these Sherpa guides would actually threaten to turn back on while they were guiding people if they found Yeti tracks. They'd be like, yeah, no, not going. Like, that's it.
All right, everyone, that's another 3 months down.
Yeah. So
at least they have boundaries.
I mean, could you imagine, too, because you figure it's like 3 months to get up the mountain, and then 2 months in, they're like, oh, we found Yeti trash, we gotta head back down, everybody.
Like 1 day left, and they're like, oh, no.
But I can see the top right there. No, we're heading out.
Which brings us to 1930, and this was Frank Smythe. Frank Smith? It's Smythe. It's Smythe. 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 I'm gonna say Smythe.
Smith. Smythe.
Pick one.
All right. So he was told by a porter, as the Sherpa guides were called. They're called porters. A porter named Nemu, that he had seen several times the Badmashi, which is a large white man covered in fur with his own 2 eyes. And that's about all that is. But that's just another name to throw in the mix. Badmashi.
Yeah, it sounds cool. With his own eyes.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, I skipped over another one.
Oh?
But this is going back to 1903, right around the turn of the century. A guy named Hugh Knight. He supposedly was in the Himalayas somewhere, and he stopped his horse so it could catch its breath. And he stopped in an area that he described as an amphitheater. There's just, like, mountains all around him. But, like, not in a valley, but, like, in a smaller, like, you know, area.
Okay, and there were, like, little chairs set out.
Yeah, sure.
That's where the almost sit when they do
right.
their plays
Exactly.
of shaking trees.
That's what I was thinking.
So he's there letting his horse catch breath, and then he hears the sounds of stones tumbling down one of the hills around him. So he turns his head to look, and he describes it as seeing a blonde gorilla standing on its hind legs. And when the gorilla had realized it was seen, it ran off. Sometimes on 2 legs, sometimes on all 4s. But the craziest part is that in one of the hands, it was carrying a bow and arrow.
Whoa.
Yeah, dude, homie was about to be sniped.
Dang.
Imagine.
By a blonde gorilla?
All the people that go missing in the Himalayas, what if that's what happened to them?
the
got sniped
Yetis
by
are
blonde
sniping
gorilla.
people
Yeah.
off? That's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? Sorry, that was just like the craziest thing that came out. But Ivan Sanderson was expressing difficulty in verifying this story because I guess there's like nobody really named Hugh Knight. And like the years are pretty dubious. I Googled it because the year 1903 wasn't given to me in the book. And I Googled it, and that was the first one, so I kind of jotted it down. And then I read later that they didn't know when it took place. They didn't know who Hugh Knight even was.
Okay.
So, like, take that with a grain of salt.
It's a cover-up.
Yeah, it's a cover.
Especially it's the only real story of a Yeti with, like, a weapon.
Yeah, exactly.
They've got a Yeti army waiting for us.
It's hard to track down, first accounts of things like this. And we run into this with a lot of our other cryptid research. Like, there's these stories, but you can't even track it back to the primary source because that person either...
Especially for something as early as that.
Yeah, that person either doesn't exist or, whatever.
Yeah. But that brings us to the year 1925. And a guy from the Royal Geographical Society in Britain, his name was N.A. Tambazi.
Ooh.
Tambazi's back, dude.
Oh, no.
Tambazi. Remember you said his name stood for Not Available Tambazi?
Oh, yeah. N.A. He's back, baby. Better than ever.
So he was writing a book called Account of a Photographic Expedition to the Southern Glaciers of Kangchenjunga in the Sikkim Himalaya. That's the full title. I stopped a little too early.
Sikkim.
But basically, he was the first guy to go to the Himalayas and really just like start taking pictures. So that's pretty cool. And so he was hiking, as they say, roughly 9 miles away from the Zemu Glacier. I don't know exactly where that is, but his porters were pointing to something down the way they had just came from, and it was a dark human-shaped object. And it was walking around, sometimes stooping low to grab some...
The shrubs, right?
The
He grabbed some shrubs.
the dwarf rhododendron bushes, as they're called. And then it was gone within a minute. And I actually have a quote here from Tambazi himself, because he did have a camera with him. Why didn't he take a picture? And he said, "With such a fleeting glimpse, unfortunately, it did not allow me to set the telephoto camera or to even fix the object carefully with the binoculars."
Oh, no.
So...
That's why he's not available.
But on the descent down, after they had climbed up, he stopped to see where the creature had been, and he found the footprints, and he said they were similar in shape to man, about 7 inches long and 4 inches wide at the broadest part. But there's 5 distinct toes. And then he was going to follow them because he could see where they were going, but like the weather started getting really bad. Again, that's like a thing with Sasquatch, is like the weather always gets bad. And so...
Well, the Yeti is like the
He's god of the hunt, right?
Nature.
He's the abominable
being.
snowman. He can control the weather. So that brings us... So it's bringing up bushes and like eating stuff. So that brings us to a passage written by Professor Rene von Nebesky Wojtkowicz.
Oh boy, what a name.
Yeah. No, there's a couple more like
Didn't butcher that one.
wacko names.
I'll be honest, there's a lot of research that I don't include in the podcast because I just simply cannot correctly pronounce people's names, and I just get so tired of butchering them.
Oh, well. I'm going to keep doing it.
If you got a weird name, you're getting omitted.
So this guy, Rene, I'm just going to call him Rene because I'm not going to try to pronounce that last name. But he spent 3 years in Tibet and Sikkim, and he devoted ethnographic studies to it.
That was the Yeti itself.
Yeah. So I actually have a quote here. So this is what
Lime
good old
scooter.
Rene has to say. He says, "From what native hunters say, the term snowman is a misnomer, since firstly it is not human, and secondly it does not live in the zone of the snow. Its habitat is rather the impenetrable thickets of the highest tracts of Himalayan forests. During the day it sleeps in its lair, which it does not leave until nightfall. Then its approach may be recognized by the cracking of branches and its peculiar whistling call. In the forest, the Migo moves on all fours or by swinging from tree to tree, but in the open country it generally walks upright with an unsteady rolling gait. Why does the creature undertake what must certainly be extremely worrisome expeditions into the inhospitable regions of snow? The natives have what sounds a very credible explanation. They say the snowman likes a saline moss which it finds on the rocks of the moraine fields. While searching for this moss, it leaves its characteristic tracks on the snowfields. When it has satisfied its hunger for salt, it returns to the forest." And
He's just got the munchies.
well, this is a very important passage because everyone thinks the Yeti lives in the snow.
Mm-hmm.
And I am convinced that it does not live in the snow.
Sure.
I think it lives in the tree line. There's nothing that grows in the snow, so why would it live in the snow? You know?
Because it's a snowman. He's made out of snow.
Yeah, right?
Now, you saying that just makes me think of him, like, trying to stay balanced while he's walking.
I mean, that's essentially what he's saying is happening.
Yeah.
They're just like big clumsy doofuses. Just,
Like, they never get good at walking on 2 feet.
like this is not cool
But
for us.
Yeah.
Ivan Sanderson adds on to this, saying that there aren't any like shrubs as he's describing in that passage. There's lichens, which I guess are very similar, but they're not quite the same thing. And they're not saline, but they're rich in vitamin E, so it still could be true.
What's vitamin E? What's
It's good for your bones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm joking. I don't know.
I was gonna say.
Why
like,
don't we look it up? We have the internet.
Yeah, we got the world in our hands.
Dude,
But-
you don't know vitamin E?
I was gonna say, if you're just trying to catch a Yeti, just bring some potato chips. They got a lot of salt in them. Who knows? Maybe they'll come a calling.
It basically, if it says, if your diet runs low in vitamin E, you can have a lot of problem with your nerves. So
Okay, that's why they walk so funny.
yeah,
Solved.
solved.
Yeti.
The Yeti
proven.
solved. That's the name of this episode now. Is the Yeti solved?
With question mark?
Question mark.
Exclamation point.
Like all those Discovery Channel documentaries, you know, they're all like the Yeti found, and then they never find it.
And then it's an hour and a half of people walking through the snow.
Basically, hold on. I have a little bit more, but all right. So I'm jumping all the way to the 50s now.
Do
So
it.
November 8th, 1951. I wrote down the specific day because it's the day after Jasmine's birthday.
Hey.
But,
Oh, happy birthday, Jasmine.
So this brings us to a guy named Eric Shipton. Eric
Oh, yeah.
Shipton and Michael Ward, along with the Sherpa Sen Tenzing, who had the story earlier, they were exploring the Gauri Sanker Range after his 6th attempt at climbing Mount Everest. He's failed 6 times by this
Oof.
point.
Well, at least
And-
he didn't die, so that's
Yeah,
good.
you gotta admire
Yeah.
his diligence.
An important note, though, is that he had actually seen Yeti tracks before, back in 1936, while also trying to climb Mount Everest.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But like he was too busy trying to climb the mountain to really care about the tracks.
well, yeah, and we'll see that later with, like, Tom Slick, because he was really the first person to not be a mountaineer.
Mm-hmm.
Because all Yeti expeditions in quotations, weren't really expeditions to find the Yeti. It was usually to climb a mountain,
Mhm.
and then, oh, look, Yeti tracks. We'll explore this for like 3 days, and then if we can't find anything, well, that's it. Back climbing the mountain. Like, there was never really a
It's
full
like a
on.
little side adventure.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was.
Yeah.
But so Eric Shipton in 1951 finds the footprints, and they estimate that the size, based on how big the tracks were, the size of the creature leaving those bipedal tracks would be around 8 feet tall. And so they photographed the trail and they followed it for a mile before they lost it in ice. But it's also important to note that it had one big toe and 3 little ones instead of like 5 toes. So they think that one of them might have been like two toes like really close together, so it only left one print. But there have been seen like 4-toed Sasquatch prints and like a 3-toed one in Fouke, Arkansas.
Arkansas, eh?
Yeah.
These were like the first photos of tracks, right?
Yeah, I think so. Some of the first. Pretty wild. They're pretty iconic.
Yeah.
Actually, I think cryptid fact number 1 is that photo.
Yeah, I feel like people think that this is like the more definitive evidence of the Yeti.
Yeah.
Than anything else.
This was what, 51 you said?
51, yeah.
Okay.
Pretty wild.
Yeah.
Over 100 years ago.
Whoa. We're coming at you from 2051, baby.
Oh, and this is where I would like to debunk myself from the first Yeti thing. Because we start talking at the end that the Sherpas and all the people who live there view it as purely mythical. And it was the Westerners' idea that it was a real thing. That is not true. That is definitely not true, and I feel bad for saying it, because especially in this one story, it's not even that long of a story, but this guy named Charles Stonor met with a Sherpa named Pasang Nyima, and he said that he had seen a Yeti while he was going to a sacred place for a religious ceremony. He saw it on the way there, and it was grabbing brush from the ground just like the other one, and when it had realized it had been seen, he took off into the forest on 2 legs. And Stoner asked the Sherpa guy, he asked Pasang, he said, is the Yeti a flesh and blood animal or is it a spirit? And Pasang responds, how could it be a spirit since we saw its footprints after it had run away?
You dingus.
Yeah, like, yeah. I mean...
It is very interesting because there are, like we've mentioned already, a lot of like legends and mythology behind it. And even some of the sources that I read, like, I read a National Geographic article that said Sherpa tradition holds that the Yeti will only show itself to those who believe in it, which, like, kind of sounds cool at first and makes a little bit of sense, but then, like, why would you even want the Yeti to show up if it's this dangerous creature? Like, so you're going out there and trying to will it? Like, it's not
yeah.
so I mean, I guess. It. But even still,
so
what are we collecting its
blood for? Your nice outhouse
for?
that you made.
Mythical ceremonies.
It's definitely interesting, though, the whole idea of, is it a myth, is it a spirit, is it a god, is it a creature, is it a bear? Because a lot of people think it's just a bear.
Yeah. And that's something interesting, too. I'll touch on the bear point a little bit later.
Yeah, I have a little on that, too.
But that's kind of like with Sasquatch, you know, because a lot of the Native American tribes attribute, like, otherworldly powers to it, but at the same time still recognize it as a real thing. And I feel like, I don't know, in Western culture at least, it's very difficult for us to comprehend the duality of something. Like, something can't actually be 2 things at the same time. And I feel like, you know, the Sherpas obviously understand it as being 2 things. You know, the Native Americans understand Sasquatch as being 2 things. But it seems like it's very, like, cut and dry. It's like, oh, it's either 100% real and it's just an animal, or it's purely mythical. You know, it's never like...
It's never both.
It's never both.
Yeah, it's never just an animal that also has mythical powers. And
yeah.
It does its thing, you know?
Also, like, is it one or is it many? Like, like, when you go back to the myths and the legends, like, of the glacier being and the god of the hunt and whatever, but then you're like, oh, yeah, we go get its blood for ceremonies. Like, is it one being?
I think, because there's... Because the Nialmos are the big ones, and there's the tiny ones. And the Yetis, there's boys and girls walking around. The ladies got them big old boobies they throw around.
But I just think it's interesting how we have, you know, these stories of, you know, you broke down the 4 different kinds of Yeti, but then we still also talk about the Yeti as if it's one thing, like it's the Yeti. Yeah. The Yeti.
And I think that's a problem from... kind of westernization of it, because I mean it's very clear from like the mythos, you know, them having the knowledge of like Yeti men and women, you know, that it's multiple of them, and they even themselves define them as 3 different types of Yetis, you know, and so like they think there's multiple, but then, you know, Westerners show up and they were like, there's one Yeti?
Whoa, there can't be a race of these things walking around. There's only got to be one that's been around for thousands of years by itself.
pretty wild. But I have some more here that will chug us all into a discussion that we can all join in, I'm sure. So this comes from a lama. He's kind of like a spiritual leader.
Is it the Dalai Lama?
Not the Dalai Lama. This is a lower lama.
Wait, there's different types of lama?
Yeah.
Whoa! I always
Yeah.
thought there was just the Dalai Lama.
No, the Dalai Lama is like...
He's like
the head honcho.
He's like the Pope, right?
He would be like the Pope. And so, like, lamas are just, like, regular priests.
Okay, interesting.
So...
Uncultured swine.
I'm so sorry. I didn't know there was a subcategory of llamas.
Yeah, there's a hierarchy here, dude.
And then there's the ones with the big long necks that walk around and spit at people.
Yeah, okay. So, Lama Chemed Rijzin, I'm going to say Rijzin from now on, said that the Yeti was revered and even claimed to have studied 2 mummified bodies in 2 different monasteries. And he lists the monasteries. And so there's supposedly one at a monastery in Riwoch in the province of Kham, and another one at a monastery in Sakya. And so, also fun note, Pangboch, which we will inevitably bring up, is the oldest Sherpa village. But so that kind of starts floating the idea of this mummified Yeti, and like Westerners are like hearing about this, and they're like, whoa, maybe I can find one that's already been like killed.
Now this is we're saying this is a full corpse. Like, it's not like a hand or,
That's
a scalp. It's like a full corpse.
That's what Lama Chemed was saying.
Ooh.
Dude.
And mummies are cool, so
Yeah.
imagine like a monkey mummy.
I'm going to talk about mummies later.
But this is where it really comes to a head, because in 1953, 4 mountaineers, I'm gonna name them as best I can. They're from India. So Rusi Gandhi, J.A. Gaitonde, P.V. Patankar, and Navnit Parikh of the Bombay Natural History Society stopped at the monastery in Pangboch. And also there at the exact same time was a guy named Dr. Charles Evans, and he was on an Everest mission, and an Austrian anthropologist, Professor Christoph von Führer Heimendorf.
Oh, wow, what a name.
Yeah, I know. And so these Indian mountaineers, were the first to photograph the scalp and the hand at the Pangboch Monastery. And actually, the monk there was so kind that he gave them a single hair from it.
Oh,
Yeah.
dang, that's crazy. Could you imagine just like, there's like, pluck, here you go.
Yeah.
Oh, don't drop it. Don't.
It's a Christmas miracle.
But this brings us to our homeboy, Tom Slick.
Oh, yeah.
Tom Slick!
You
Bum,
seem
bum, bum.
really excited to talk about
Dude,
him.
Tom Slick is the shit.
I did not
We get one more before we get an R
I
rating.
know, right?
I did not get any
I got one
information.
sentence.
Okay, you go. Wait, did you say
No.
you just have one
I
sentence?
have one sentence. Yeah.
What's
That's-
the sentence?
that's
What's
all
the
you
sentence?
need.
It's more like a little thought. Tom Slick expedition, and I didn't write anything down.
I mean, that's all you need to know. Good night, everybody.
Well, Tom Slick is this
I meant
business.
to bring my iPad.
He's like an oil man.
Mm.
I'm an oil man.
I drink up your
really?
milkshake.
From,
Drink it down.
I forget exactly where he's from. He was born in like Pennsylvania,
Okay.
but he kind of like lived in Texas for a while.
Mhm.
So Tom Slick, he has all this money. In
Mhm.
1956, that's actually when he went out to the Himalayas. So I know we talked about him a little bit in the first Yeti episode,
Mhm.
and we said that he funded a bunch of expeditions, which is true, and partly not true. But we didn't talk about him actually going to the Himalayas, because he actually did that. He wasn't just some rich, like, billionaire dude.
Go get me the Yeti.
Yeah, he wasn't like that. He was actually going out there. He actually he was a very nice man, from what I'm reading. So I guess this goes back to the panda point, because he didn't think it was crazy that there was a Yeti living out there in the Himalayas, because the Yeti, or the panda, had only recently been discovered, and actually, there was only 9 Westerners who had seen a giant panda in the wild at the time.
Could you imagine?
That's crazy.
Imagine. So
Everybody knows what a panda looks like now.
I know,
Can
exactly.
you imagine not knowing a panda existed?
It's just some guys just like, yeah, so over in China, there's these big bears, and they're black and they're white, and they tumble around and eat bamboo. And it's like
And not
crazy
only that,
talk.
like a decade before pandas were discovered, gorillas were discovered. So it's like just like this double, like it's this whole world of like, whoa, there's these crazy animals out there.
Oh, it's funny too, because people are like, oh, a monkey man living on the mountains, that's crazy. And then they're like, oh, guess what we found? We found gorillas. They're monkey men that live in the forest.
Yeah. So What Tom Slick was doing in the Himalayas originally was just going around asking Sherpas for their legends and also if they had ever seen any. And he would like write down their sighting reports.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, he was like really the first one to do that. And which brings us to a guy named Peter Byrne.
Brian? Peter Brian?
It's not Brian, it's Byrne.
I'll call him Brian till the day we keep going.
So, and he was an Irish-born big game hunter.
Oh, no.
So he talks about his 12-gauge shotgun a lot. And he had found his first Yeti tracks in 1948, and in the same area N.A. Tambazi had found his.
Ooh.
That's pretty interesting. But the problem with Byrne is that he had no money because he wasn't really rich like that. And so he was actually working in the Himalayas as a guide. He just kept staying there. And
me and my shotgun will take you to the mountain.
yeah, and he spent like a month. He went back in 56 to the spot where he had found his original tracks, and he spent a month there looking for anything he could find on the Yeti. Found absolutely nothing, and was going down the mountain when he found another group of people coming up the mountain. And guess who it was?
Tom Slick?
No.
Oh.
Edmund Hillary.
Oh!
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
It's
Like,
just-
of all the people to run into in the Himalayas.
The biggest dick that ever walked the Everest, Edmund Hillary.
Yeah, and it was actually from his Sherpa guide, I think it was Sen Ten Singh, who actually told him about Tom Slick.
Oh, dang.
And so...
Small world, dude.
Yeah, dude. And so they hooked it up, they mailed each other, they got together, and in March 14th, 1957, they sent out to the Himalayas from Nepal on this, like, expedition.
So you have, like, the best of the best teaming up to take on the Yeti.
Mm-hmm.
Like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
So,
Oh, yeah.
this is another thing, too, about the panda. So, discovering new species was really different back then. So, the first idea when you found a new species was just to shoot it and kill it and then stuff it and be like, boom,
Look
look
what
what
I
I
found.
found. And that's actually how people mostly knew pandas back then. There was actually pandas stuffed in, like, museums and places. That's how, like, most people saw a panda back then.
That's terrible.
Before one was, like, brought out of China. Which is pretty wild. But that's where Tom Slick kind of grew up with that mentality. He was like, he brought guns, he brought traps, he was ready to capture a Yeti alive and or kill it in the process. And the Nepalese government was like, yeah, you can't do that. There's a ban on capturing and killing Yetis on their very first expedition. But on top of that, Tom Slick almost died on the very first day.
Oh, no.
Yeah. They were taking a bus to a place called Dharan, and they were going to leave from that city and go out into the Himalayas. But the bus stopped on a hill so people could sleep, but the bus started rolling downhill.
Oh, jeez.
They've got to put the parking brake
And,
on.
like, Peter Byrne was talking about how he was like, at first it was going really slow, so we thought we'd be okay, but then it started picking up speed, so we had to, like, jump. And so...
Out of the bus?
Out of the bus as it was moving. So Peter Byrne, like, everyone started jumping, and then Tom Slick jumped, but he landed on his knees and then rolled. And, like, for the rest of his life, his knees were, like, giving him chronic pain.
Oh.
But on top of this, I know, isn't that crazy? It's awful.
It's just like anytime people's knees get injured, I'm like, oh god, that's the worst. You ever bang your knee on the door?
Dude, it hurts.
It's the worst.
Yeah, imagine landing on your knees after jumping out of a moving bus.
And then all the Yetis laugh at you.
His mom, Tom Slick's mom, told him to not go on any more dangerous expeditions after that, which might seem pretty silly because Tom Slick was over 40 at the time.
I was just going to ask, how
Yeah.
old was he?
I'm a grown man, Mom. It's not a phase.
It's because, okay, so Tom Slick lost his dad as a young age, and he, like, really respected his mom. So when she told him, you know, like, you shouldn't be, like, doing crazy stuff like that, he, like, took it to heart. And this was actually the last time he ever went to the Himalayas. So, and I actually have a picture of him with his knees all bandaged
Oh,
up.
I know.
It doesn't look bad.
Just like giant
Kinda,
ice packs.
He kind of looks like a mama's boy.
Oh, I know.
I say.
Like, look at him, dude.
I done chipped my knees.
Yeah, but...
But yeah, with his little shorts on, he looks kind
Yeah,
of...
it's funny we're like
Yeah.
doing his voice with an accent, but he's like from Texas.
I know, right?
yeah, he is from Texas.
Oh, I say.
I say, governor.
So, I'm gonna just kind of skip through like the trials and tribulations of this expedition and talk about what they found.
Okay.
And so Slick and Peter Byrne kind of split up to look in 2 different areas at the same time. And so Slick found tracks that were 13 inches in length, 5-toed, and bipedal. But they weren't in the snow. They were in the mud. They were like found.
Now we're talking.
And so he photographed them and even casted them.
Ooh.
So there's like Yeti casts out there somewhere. And I don't think they'll ever be found. But Peter Byrne found some fresh tracks, which his Sherpa guides told him were Yeti tracks, not bear tracks. And he speculated they were made an hour before and set off to follow them.
Ooh.
And they followed them for 4 miles, which took them 5 hours to do.
Oh, God, I can imagine.
And the only reason they had to stop was because it was like turning into nightfall and the terrain was getting just too rough to follow.
Mm-hmm.
But they could see the tracks. They could still see them, but it was just like for 5 hours straight. And there's just
like trekking through like heavy duty snow.
Mm-hmm.
God, that's crazy.
I know.
It's
But
all
like,
uphill, right?
imagine, yeah.
Ugh.
But like Peter Byrne was just like, he's like, I told them to finish setting up camp and then follow me. And I grabbed my 12 gauge and I started following the tracks. And I'm like, dude, what is up with this guy? It's always straight to the 12 gauge.
This is my rifle. This is my gun.
The evidence that they brought back from the trip was lost in the tunnels of Life. Literally Life magazine. They sent it to Life magazine.
Was it like... It was more than just footprints? Was there
they found droppings and hair.
Oh,
Okay.
gross.
But they speculate that the droppings were actually snow leopards and...
But still, imagine they're just Time
box
magazine.
of
They're like,
feces.
hey, we got a box from Peter Byrne and Hillary. What's this? And there's this poop.
It's not Hillary. Hillary wasn't there.
They got a box. I'm like, it's full of poop. They're like, oh, no.
So, but it hasn't really like turned up. I know they sent the casts to Life magazine, and it just never has surfaced.
That's so weird.
It's a cover up, dude.
It is.
I want to get in buddy with someone who works at Life and be like, bro, can you find these for me?
Yeah, where's that Yeti poop at?
Yeah.
Remember when we were
Ultimately,
talking about
yeah.
Bigfoot and like apparently evidence was sent to my college of
Yeah.
my
Yeah,
hometown
the
and
sketchy
never
college.
It never came up.
Never came up. Never
That's
was
The college
revealed.
just disappeared, too. Just uprooted.
No, the college is still there. Trust me.
Ohio's not a state anymore. Just disappeared.
what would be there?
Illinois, too.
Illinois too.
It's just in this. Could you imagine, like, if Ohio was just the mirage the whole time?
Just turned into another Great Lake.
Yeah, huge flake. So Slick organized another 1958 expedition with an oil business friend, F. Kirk Johnson Sr.
Ooh.
And so this became known as the Slick Johnson Snowman Expedition. And they even like labeled their boxes that too. It was
That's
pretty
a cool
cool.
name,
Slick
too.
Johnson.
Slick Johnson coming at you, baby.
Slick Johnson. Like I said before, though, Slick's last expedition was the one just previous.
Blew his knees out.
Yeah, and so he wasn't on this one, which led to like a lot of issues. So Slick just wanted to photograph first and then capture. Killing was to be a last resort. They even gave people like tranquilizers. They had 4 traps to capture the animal. Slick even got 3 bloodhounds for the expedition.
Ooh.
But it turns out the bloodhounds don't do very well in the heat of the Nepali valleys. Because like it's crazy to think. It's a very extreme environment, the Himalayas. It's very hot in the valleys and then extremely cold in the snow. Like it's probably a place you could just like freeze to death, roll down the hill, and just like thaw out. Right?
You get heated up.
Like it's
If
pretty.
you don't die from the impact of falling down the mountain.
You freeze to death, fall down, catch on fire at the bottom.
Well, I guess these bloodhounds were like special bloodhounds by the Lees brothers in Texas. They were like famous breeders. But Gail Lee, she wrote a 4-page single-spaced letter on how to take care of these bloodhounds,
And they
which
didn't do
was
it,
not
did they?
followed at all.
Uh-oh.
And Peter Byrne, who was not supposed to be in charge of the bloodhounds, was just randomly placed in charge of the bloodhounds.
Oh, no.
And they were like overheating in the valleys and stuff. They never really made it to the snow.
Dang.
And so what Peter Byrne ended up doing was just like leaving them in a village.
Oh,
And so
no.
like they just like bred, and there's like puppies from them You could probably
like high class dogs left in like a village somewhere.
You could probably find them still, actually.
That's
crazy.
kind of adorable.
Not the dogs themselves, but the
I'm glad that didn't turn into the dogs died.
No, I
if they
think
left
survived.
them with people in the village, I feel a little bit better.
No, yeah, because I think they have dogs out there too. I mean, I would hope so. So the people on the expedition was Peter Byrne, his brother Brian, and the leader was a guy named Gerald Russell, who was the guy who brought the baby panda out of China back in 1936. Yeah. And this was like the first time they put someone in charge who was not a mountaineer. Mm-hmm. He was literally like a zoologist.
Okay.
So that's the approach they were taking to the Yeti. And there was also a guy named Norman G. Dyrenforth, who was a climber, filmmaker, photographer.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah. He used to do intros where he'd film himself climbing up a mountain, and then 5 feet away he'd be going down a canoe, all cool style like.
But these three guys were basically bumping heads the entire time.
Oh, I
it
can
was
imagine.
Peter Byrne, Norman Dyrenforth, and Gerald Russell were all just like, no, I'm in charge. Just the entire time. And like, Tom Slick was always just trying to calm them down, sending them later. Like, if Tom Slick had been there...
He probably could have, like, prevailed.
Because he would have been the leader. He was the one funding the expedition, you know? So, like, it just bothers me. But the expedition lasted for 113 days.
Ooh.
And so they all each found different things. So I'm going to get into that. So Russell, he focused on using frogs to use as bait to get the little Yetis. The
little baby Yetis.
Yeah.
Baby Yoda?
No.
Oh.
But there were stories of people seeing the Yetis, the little ones, that were eating frogs at the stream. So they were like, that's a good idea. Mm-hmm. And so they would like take frogs, tie them down to a thing, and just go. It's kind of brutal, but I mean,
it's just like the goat in Jurassic Park. It's just like hanging out there. It's just a frog.
Dude, they probably didn't even untie him too.
And they're just like, what? You don't eat frog legs?
Watch The Mandalorian on Disney Plus.
Oh yeah, the Baby Yoda, best thing to come out of Disney ever.
He eats frogs. That's why I said that earlier.
Yeah.
Also, I love Pedro Pascal.
Oh, we did not know that.
We do.
Oh yeah, that's like your whole gimmick.
Alex is so savage all of a sudden.
That's your whole entire life.
So the frog bait was more or less successful. Russell never saw a Yeti, but one of his Sherpa helpers did.
Oh,
actually.
I was gonna be like, what does that mean, more or less?
So yeah, because they would like check. It was like a hide. Like you would wait and hide and watch and see if the Yeti would show up, because they didn't have like cameras, like game cams back then. So, which would be interesting to do a Yeti expedition now using the same techniques. But
let's go.
So this guy was on his way to go check on the frog trap, and about 10 yards away he sees a Yeti. And it takes one step towards him, and he ran away.
Oh,
he like ran back to camp.
I would too.
That's honestly the first time I think we've had a Yeti go towards someone, because they're always the ones that run away. So that's crazy that it was like, I'm coming for you, frog legs.
Yeah. And Dyrenforth, this is crazy too. Dyrenforth, the photographer, filmmaker dude, he supposedly found a cave with a bunch of tracks leading towards it, and like rodent bones and like droppings on the inside.
Oh, gross.
And he found a bed made of juniper trees, like literally trees ripped up. And they found some around the cave and tried to rip them out, but they couldn't do it. Which goes back to like the whole idea of the Yeti being able to rip up trees. Mm-hmm. And not only that, but there's like pictures of this bed, which is like insane. I don't know if they're in this, I think they're in my other book, but maybe I'll post it on the Instagram.
Yeah, throw it on the gram.
Like this is like a cave somewhere that they found this constructed, which would go in like line with, if you believe that the stick structures that if Bigfoot makes those, you know, similar situation. But I just thought that was crazy, and no one ever talks about that. But here's why. I'm gonna talk. Side note here, but
Eli just closed his notebook and crossed his arms.
Well, okay, so Tom Slick, very unfortunately, he didn't seek like attention or fame from the media. He approached it very scientifically. So he would go out, find some of these things, want to find more evidence before really publishing it. Like, I'm getting all this information from Tom Slick, True Life Encounters in Cryptozoology by Lauren Coleman. It's basically a biography of Tom Slick's life, but written by Lauren Coleman. Because Tom Slick never published any books.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Just to think that he was like the class act of like, I need to find everything, then I'll publish it. Where it's just like everyone's like, there's a Yeti out there. Oh really? What do you got? Well, I know that's a Yeti. The name. We're gonna find the rest later. Don't worry. Like,
well, he wasn't saying that. That's the thing.
That's what everyone else in cryptozoology does.
So yeah, exactly. So he was like trying to like get down to the bottom of it before publishing it, and that's unfortunately when, what's his name? The guy who climbed Mount Everest. Hillary, he kind of like swept in there and was like, oh, you know, and it kind of overshadowed Tom Slick's works, unfortunately. But getting back to it, what was Byrne doing this entire time besides playing with dogs? He was the second person to photograph the relics at Pangboche.
Oh, cool.
And this brings us to our next story.
Oh.
the heist.
Yes.
This is what everything's building towards. Dude, it's crazy. It's even crazier once you get down to the details, it gets crazier.
I don't even know what's happening right now. I don't remember anything about a heist.
You don't remember Jimmy Stewart?
Okay. That's the heist you're talking about?
Which is funny because on the way to pick you guys up, I was stopped at a red light at James Stewart Avenue.
Oh no.
Also, Jimmy Stewart is in one of the best all-time Christmas movies.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah.
Vertigo.
So it's very on theme for today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, but it goes back to the Johnsons. So how did Tom Slick, Peter Byrne, Jimmy Stewart all come together? It was through the Johnsons who had funded, Slick Johnson Expedition.
Mm-hmm.
And they had been oil partners. Jimmy Stewart and Johnson were like I guess Jimmy Stewart was like into like a lot of like oil business and like real estate and like he was like doing a lot of crazy stuff besides just acting.
He joined the army too at one point.
I guess I mean
the acting was just like a side hobby for fun, and he was just like really into oil investments.
Yeah, I don't know. But so it was the Slick Johnson Expedition of 1959. So there was two Slick Johnson expeditions, one in 58, one in 59.
Okay.
And so this is the one that was just Peter Byrne and his brother for 9 months in the Himalayas, living off the land.
Oh god.
Yeah, crazy.
A nightmare.
But it was during this time that Peter Byrne stole the finger and the thumb from the Pangboche hand.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote in a letter to Tom Slick, dated February 3rd, 1959, he opens the letter with, I shall not go into details here of how we got the thumb and the phalanx of the Pangboche hand, but it's sufficient to say that we have them.
Ooh.
And not only that, but he replaced them, the index finger and the thumb, with a human one, which I tried to make a joke last time and it didn't land, but like, where did he get those from? He just like cut them off of somebody and just like replaced them.
Know.
What if he just came home just like, I got the finger. I'm sorry, wrong hand. I got the finger.
They found one of those thawed bodies at the bottom.
Oh no.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. It's very mysterious, and I would like to know how exactly he did it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the monks, they keep it locked up. Like, you can't just, like, it's not just like, oh, look, the monk's not looking. It's like, you have to, like, break in there and, like...
They're like now humble monks of the monastery. The comedic stylings of Jimmy Stewart. He just gets out there, hello, everybody.
Well, that was in Tibet. He got the fingers in Tibet, and he brought them over to India, which is where they were going to fly out of. But the customs inspections were very thorough, so that's when the Johnsons stepped in. And they're like, oh, we have a friend out in Calcutta right now who just got done visiting the Maharaja. It was Jimmy Stewart and his wife. Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm.
Well, how is he visiting the Maharaja? Who is this man?
And now, Maharaja, the comedic stylings of Jimmy Stewart.
And so Gloria hid the fingers in her lingerie, like Jasmine said before.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, though, when they landed in London, the luggage actually got lost for hours. And then they found that it had been delivered to their hotel. Isn't that wild?
I want to know, what was the deal? Why did Stewart agree to this? Was there something in it for him? Was he just genuinely interested in
Or
the
he just-
Yeti?
Is he just he's just like, seems like a weirdo.
Or is he just a nice guy doing a favor?
They're like, hey, you want
I mean, well, Johnson was his business partner, so
That's true.
he's probably like, hey,
hey,
Do me a solid. Come on, man.
do me a solid.
okay.
I want to go back though just a little bit to that before they did the heist with the hand. Peter Burns sent some Yeti droppings to several scientific consultants who were confidential at the time, but the whole list is revealed in the book. But Bernard Heuvelmans,
It was Johnson & Johnson,
Yeah.
a family company.
Bernard Heuvelmans was actually one of the. We talked about him before, the father of cryptozoology.
Yeah. Oh, dang. Okay.
He was examining one of them, and he found an egg of a parasite that was like undiscovered. And he wrote this: since each species of mammal has its own parasites, this indicates that the host animal is also equally an unknown animal. So are those
Pretty
real?
compelling.
Right? But I guess it's kind of true, because I don't know, when you think about like ticks, like the ticks that humans get are different, or not ticks, lice.
Oh, lice,
Like
right.
like the lice that humans get is different from like gorillas and chimps. They're all like different types of lice. I've like never even considered that. But,
I
like,
didn't even know that.
Yeah, I don't know why I know that.
I didn't know gorillas got lice. That's crazy.
Yeah, they do.
Poor bastards.
They're called gorilla lice, and they look scary.
Ooh.
Did anyone else have anything on that Jimmy Stewart heist?
No.
No, just Jimmy Stewart helped steal a Yeti finger, and and then they like, hey, Jimmy Stewart, here's the finger, and someone gave Jimmy Stewart the finger.
Oh, I guess Jimmy Stewart gave someone the finger. But this brings us to the study of the hands, because there's like a lot of mixed results on that. But I do want to bring up this one guy who was also a scientific consultant for the Slick Johnson expedition, studying the droppings. His name is George Agogino. Agogino? It's like ago, like a long time ago.
Okay.
And then Gino.
So,
Gianna?
how you say it?
I'm saying Agogino. Agogino.
Lego my Agogino.
So, but he was talking about how the metacarpals, so I'm assuming that's like the upper part of your finger, is flat. And he says that doesn't occur in humans. It's always round. So it was like long and flat, and that's like.
But what about the midichlorians?
Dude, it's beyond Master Yoda's, dude.
Oh. The boy is strong.
But I bring this man up because in 1991, NBC's Unsolved Mysteries revealed that Agogino kept a small bit of the skin from the hand of the Pengboche hand. Because I guess Peter Byrne stole 2 little pieces of skin as well, along with the fingers. And so the analysis of the skin revealed that it was not human, but near human, which is kind of vague. But like, if you were to describe a chimp's DNA, I guess it's near human.
Yeah, I mean, chimpanzees are like kind of human-esque too,
Yeah.
in a horrifying way.
But yeah, so that's that. Edmund Hillary. So he is the man known as the man who hunted the Yeti.
Ooh.
Which is ironic because Peter Byrne was the guy running around the Himalayas with his
With an
12
actual
gauge.
gun, yeah.
Yeah, hunting the Yeti. He was prepared to kill it, man. But so Edmund Hillary was always doubtful of the existence of the Yeti. And he said that if it wasn't for Slick's premature death, he would still be looking for the Yeti. Which is kind of like, why would you say that to somebody? But, or about somebody. So basically, Hillary was commissioned to, like, do this thing called the World Book. And they, like, were filming around the world. And they had a 3-month expedition to the Himalayas to do that. But that 3-month expedition was really just to debunk the Yeti. And so, according to, like, one source, they had, like, 600 people in their party. And were searching in the forests. And they didn't find anything in 3 months. And we're like, yeah, the Yeti doesn't exist.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and this was, like, publicized in, like, popular magazines, newspapers, TV interviews. Yeah, the Yeti doesn't exist. I was out there with 600 other people.
We looked around one area and didn't see it. So.
Yeah. And and Sen Tenzing, who we've talked about a little bit, Hillary even was like, yeah, your story's not true. Because Tenzing said that he had seen one after this like 3-day ceremony, but Hillary was like, "Oh yeah, that 3-day ceremony where you got drunk." It was like, "Yeah, you saw the Yeti after you got drunk? All right."
Oh dang, Hillary's mean.
Yeah, he was kind of like. And then of the Pangboche hand, he said, "It's essentially a human hand strung together with wire, with the possible inclusion of several animal bones." But the irony of that though is that the hand that they were studying was the swapped out one. It was after Peter Burns' escapade,
no.
so it is partially
Technically,
human.
yeah.
Yeah. So.
Party foul.
But this is like the ultimate takedown. They had like 4 points here. That all Yeti tracks were caused by the sun melting fox footprints in the snow, and it ignored everything else. He said that all Yeti skins were from blue bears, and this comes from after they had purchased a blue bear skin from somebody who was known to sell blue bear skins, and then they tested that hair and found out that it was bear hair, and then said it wasn't Yeti. Therefore,
They planted.
they
I'm
didn't
confused.
plant it. They just bought hair.
They
from
knew they were buying
Yeah.
bear hair and then said it was Yeti and then tested it and said it was a bear.
Yeah.
That's so dumb.
Yeah. They blatantly did that. It wasn't blatant at the time. It's blatant now. But they said that the Te Lama, the smaller Yeti, he sounded like a monkey. Therefore, it was a monkey. Very Blue Book logic there. But
it was just ball lightning the whole time.
yeah. No one was able to debunk the whistles that people were claiming to hear, which I also think, because that goes back to the Renee guy that I was telling you about, the whistles being part of a communication for the Yeti. That's pretty cool because Bigfoots do that, so it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, we haven't talked a lot about hearing what the Yeti sounds like. We talked a lot about what Sasquatch and Bigfoot sounds like, but with the Yeti, I mean, you would assume it would growl.
Yeah.
But you're telling me it's
Well, there's whistles, because they're a little higher pitched, easier to hear. But also, the Finding Bigfoot crew, they went out to the Himalayas as well, and they were caught out in a storm, unfortunately. And Bobo's pretty upset about this because he says that the crew sent, like the executive sent them out in the winter months when it was better to go like at the end of winter. So, like, they went out there and got stuck in a snowstorm, basically. But they were hearing howls, like what they think is Yeti howls. But I think that's pretty interesting. Yeah. I would like to watch that episode.
Yeah,
I still haven't found
check it out.
But, sorry for the big info dump.
No,
I mean, there's a lot of stuff, about the...
Oh, dude, there's so much more, dude.
There's been there was some other studies of supposed Yeti hairs as well. There's a guy named Brian Sykes. He's formerly a professor of genetics at the University of Oxford in the UK. He decided to test some supposed Yeti samples. I don't know exactly where he got them from. I do know that one of the samples came from Reinhold Messner, which I think we talked about in our last Yeti episode, but didn't really talk about today. But they compared this quote, Yeti DNA with the genomes of other animals, and the team found that the 2 Himalayan samples, one from India and the other from Bhutan, were most genetically similar to a polar bear that lived 40,000 years ago. Yeah. So this suggested that the Himalayas was home to an as yet unknown bear, a hybrid of an ancient polar bear and a brown bear. And there was a quote that said, if these bears are widely distributed in the Himalayas, they may well contribute to the biological foundation of the Yeti legend. But Sykes and his colleagues put all their DNA data onto a public database called GenBank, and a guy named Ross Barnett of the University of Copenhagen in Denmark, him and some teammates found a big mistake. So they downloaded the information, they downloaded all the data, and they looked at it again themselves. And they found that there wasn't an exact match to the ancient polar bears like they said. The match was more similar to modern polar bears, and even those matches were only slight. So they were only slightly similar. So this suggested a less exciting interpretation. Instead of like a secret population of polar bears living in the Himalayas, they concluded that the DNA from the hairs had actually been damaged, which does happen. Even though hair is a good source of ancient DNA because the keratin keeps harmful water away from the DNA, it can still degrade. So the team did release a statement acknowledging their error. But they also pointed out that the conclusion that these Himalayan Yeti samples were certainly not from a hitherto unknown primate is unaffected. So basically, they were saying even though the samples don't look aren't what we said they were originally, we still don't think it's a Yeti. Like, it's not a Yeti.
Interesting.
But, so there's a lot of people that do just firmly believe that it's just some kind of bear. But the idea of ape-like creatures living in the mountains is more believable now than it was a few decades ago, because of all of the hominid populations that have been discovered recently, like the Denisovans? Yeah, Denisovans.
Yeah, the Denisovans, yeah.
Yes, were an extinct species of human known from only a few fragment remains that were found in a cave in Siberia.
They just discovered that, right? That's like
the remains were discovered in 2008. And
but they just still like
it's very recent. And genetic analysis suggests that they survived for hundreds of thousands of years, only dying out around 40,000 years ago. And then there was also the discovery of the hobbits. That survived in Indonesia until just 12,000 years ago.
Is that Homo floresiensis?
Yes.
Rest in peace, Frodo.
Man, Eli's got these down. So this suggests that there might be other populations that the world has yet to learn about. Writing in the journal Nature, that's what the journal is called, Nature.
Carl Schuker?
In 2004, in the wake of the Hobbit discovery, Henry G. wrote that the discovery of Homo floresiensis survived until so very recently in geological terms makes it more likely that stories of other mythical human-like creatures such as Yetis are founded in grains of truth. So
can I also make a note about the bear thing?
Yes.
I forgot to bring this up when I was talking about Tom Slick, but that same expedition where he hurt his knees, he was going around Sherpa villages talking to more people who had seen the Yeti, and he was showing them pictures of gorillas, chimpanzees, orangutans, and bears. And every time he was like, which one is the one that looks closest to what you saw? Every single one of them pointed towards a gorilla. But on top of that, every time they tried to be like, are you sure it wasn't this picture of a bear? And they're like, no, that's a bear. Every time. They're like, no, that's a bear.
We know what a friggin' bear is.
Yeah, exactly. They're the people who live there. You would think they would know the difference between a bear and a Yeti. But
that's wild. I mean, that's crazy too to think that we've discovered new races of humans. Like we got hobbits, we got monkey people. Maybe we'll find Bronze Age fish people next.
But yeah, that's the bulk of my research.
That's cool though.
Do you have anything, Stefan?
Do you have anything?
No, I mean, not unless we're gonna start talking about popular culture stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I did want to say, Reinhold Messner, he did write a book.
Okay.
I didn't realize he wrote a book called My Expedition for the Yeti, and I would like to check it out.
You read it all, dude?
No, I didn't read it yet.
He downloaded it subconsciously.
Can
you tell us a little bit about it?
That's for the Yeti Part 3, dude.
Our yearly tradition.
Dude, what if?
So when I was preparing for this episode, knowing that it was going to be our Christmas special, I tried so hard to find why the Yeti is tied to Christmas.
Because it has blue skin and it's white fur.
There's not really anything. I literally think it's just because people think the Yeti lives in snow. Yeah. Well, because there's nothing that connects it to any Western Christmas legend or religious story.
It's all because of Disney's Matterhorn and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Yeah. I was going to say Rudolph pretty much Rudolph with the bumble towards here in Christmas land. We got reindeers, we got elves that make toys, we got Misfit Toy Island, and we got a big giant Yeti walking around.
Yeah, 1964, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
I can hear those sleigh bells tingling.
and
that movie is one of my mom's favorite Christmas movies, and we actually have the set of all the characters. So we have a little.
My mom has that.
We have a little Hermie the elf, and a little Rudolph, and Yukon Cornelius.
Why such a misfit?
Yeah, and then I think
be a dentist.
It's so interesting in the movie because they pull out all the Yeti's teeth. They tame him because Hermie's a dentist, and so he pulls out all his teeth.
They
render him helpless.
I mean, the Yeti didn't
Dang.
seem like it had everything all there anyway, though. So
It was a little wacky.
they tried to kill the prospector dude.
Yeah.
Yukon
Prospector
Cornelius.
Pete?
Cornelius, who was psycho.
Yeah, he's like
Everyone was pretty nuts in that movie.
well, that movie's crazy because it's like, yeah, how can Santa tell if we're naughty and nice when he can't even see Rudolph being bullied under his own
And
nose?
yeah, Santa kind of sucks in that movie.
It's true.
They're like the elves are trying to perform like the song for him, and he's just like sitting there all bored, and he's like, when is this gonna be over? And he's skinny, dude.
Yes.
He doesn't get fat until like the day before.
Who's ever heard of a skinny Santa?
Oh,
That movie's wild.
it's great.
I haven't seen it
Hey,
forever.
the
Yeah,
message
we'll
of
watch it, dude.
the message of the movie is your strange characteristic is only good as it's useful.
Yeah.
There's another recent movie that came out that I actually saw called Abominable, which is about the
That's
Yeti.
right.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that movie. It made me cry like 3 times. And I won't give any spoilers in case anybody wants to go watch it, but it's a very typical kind of plot, the Yeti has been captured, it escapes, and it's trying to get back home. It's that whole idea. The humans are the bad guys, which is almost always true, and he's just a creature trying to get back to his home or whatever. And there's a lot of cool things that happen in that movie, like they find out that the Yeti does have mystical powers over nature, so he controls the fruit and like the grass and the leaves and the wind, and like it's really cool. There's a lot of good escapee moments where they're like being chased and like he does something really crazy. And so I was like, oh man, I want to look into this. Like I know pretty good amount of stuff about the Yeti because we've researched it before, and there's a bunch of legends out there. So I kind of wanted to dig in and like see what the crew or the director or the producers or anything had to say about the Yeti legend, because the story is mostly just about getting the Yeti home. It doesn't really go into the history or, oh my gosh, it's real or anything like that. And so I watched an Academy conversation, and I was very disappointed in writer-director Jill Colton. Because she talks about, like, they asked her, they were like, what did you do when this idea was presented to you and whatever. And I really hope that this doesn't like do me any harm in the future talking about this. I was disappointed, but I can't really hold anything against her. Here's what she said. She stated in the interview that when presented with the idea of a Yeti movie, she did, quote, a quick Google search and found, quote, there's not much lore about them.
Brutal.
Oh!
Right?
What?
I was like...
What have we been talking about for the past hour and a half?
Exactly. I was like, how can you say that? How can you say there's not a lot of lore?
She's doing
And
the
she
air
was like...
quotes, too.
And she was like...
Not a lot of lore.
She said there's not much lore about them, and she said, yeah, they're fabled to live on Mount Everest, and they're fabled to be ferocious. And she said that she wanted this movie to create the lore that kids may live with for the rest of their lives when thinking about the Yeti. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Yeah,
Very negligent.
I liked her version. I liked the Yeti in this movie.
Pretty Western idea.
But
That's
I
some
was-
A
Eastern
nice Yeti? I don't
philosophies.
think so, okay?
I was like,
Let's go on to
how?
Missing Link, okay? The Yetis are mean in that movie.
Are they?
Are they?
Yeah.
Wait, spoiler.
Why?
I haven't seen it. I didn't see the part with the Yetis. All right.
Dude, they're going to find the Yetis. That's the
yeah.
point of the movie.
All right.
Well,
it's
Sasquatch is going to find his cousins, dude. The Yetis.
But I was so disappointed.
Yeah,
I was
I
like,
bet.
how can you sit here? You were presented with a movie idea about a mythical creature, and you did a Google search and said that there's not much lore? Like, girl,
That's what happens when you get paid the
who
big bucks.
did the research?
Could you imagine if like Christopher Nolan?
Did she write it?
They were like,
Supposedly, that's what she was listed as in the description of the Academy.
Maybe the other person
Video.
did the bulk of the legwork.
Maybe so,
Could-
I don't know. I pray that there was a researcher on that team
That's
because,
pretty
like I
crazy.
said, I liked their version. I
Yeah.
thought it was really nice.
could you
And-
imagine if Christopher Nolan, when he was like, we want you to do Batman, he's like, okay, quick Google search. There's not much on. It's like an old
There's
comic
not a
book
lot
from
of
the
lore
And I
30s.
always-
Batman.
I mean, I always like when, these mythical creatures that we talk about that are supposed to be ferocious are portrayed in a nicer light in movies like Abominable. And even earlier we mentioned mummies, and I wanted to come back to talk about mummies
This is
because
2008.
I can't not talk about my favorite movie, The Mummy, from 1999 with
Is
Brendan
that really
Fraser.
your favorite movie?
That's my
Are there
favorite
Yetis
movie.
in it?
No, but there
His
are
neck did not break!
there are Yetis in the one we don't talk about, which is the third sequel. So number 3, Tomb of the
Dragon
Dragon
Emperor.
Emperor.
Tomb of the Dragon
Okay.
Emperor?
From 2008.
I've watched
Jet
that.
Li, dude?
I've watched that movie once and never watched it again.
I can't
But-
even remember them.
In my research for this episode, I did like a YouTube search for like Yeti because I just wanted to see what would come up, and it brought up a clip from that movie that was like 8 minutes long, and I was like, no freaking way. And I watched it, and basically what happens is they're, in the midst of a fight with some mummy emperor guy, whatever. They're in the snow in Tibet, and they're fighting the bad guy, and then all of a sudden their like guide or whoever it is, I don't remember because I didn't watch the full movie, but she like makes some call. And then
she summons it.
she does.
She summons an army of Yetis.
She summons 3 of them. And this is the best part,
Do they have
okay?
white fur?
They have white
Oh my
fur,
God.
and they come down, and they're like huge, and they're like really buff and whatever, and they look kind of scary, but they're also kind of cute. And I freaking love Brendan Fraser so much because his character yells, "Abominable snowman!" And then fake Evelyn, I say fake because it's not Rachel Weisz, it's some other girl.
Oh, did
'cause
they recast?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They-
no.
she
and
got
no-
out of there, hell yeah.
Yeah.
She's like,
There's
I'm
a
not doing
lot-
this. I'm
there's a-
doing a movie. I don't know if you heard of it, The Fountain.
There's a lot of reasons that she wasn't a part of it, and
Sounds
there's a
tight,
lot of
dude.
rumors. They say it was a money issue. They say it was because she hated the script. They say it was because she just gave birth, and they say it was because she had other projects going.
All
but
of the above.
anyways, yeah, it could be all
Why
of
didn't
the
they
above.
just push the movie back?
I don't
She
freaking
probably
know.
was like, I don't want anything
But-
to do with that.
Could you imagine if they just killed off her character instead?
I would
Yeah,
be
why
so
wouldn't
mad.
they just do that?
I don't know. But Brendan Fraser yells, "Abominable snowman!" And then fake Evelyn says, "The Tibetans call them Yeti!" Because they're like in the middle of like a battle, and so they're like fighting
dude.
or whatever.
When does this one take place?
Thanks for the history
you know what?
lesson.
I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question because The Mummy takes place years ago and like
The first one's like in the
the
30s
30s
or
or something like that.
something
Yeah.
like that.
But
So-
that's so it's probably
Pretty
like
nuts
in
we
the
got 2
40s,
animated movies
Okay.
last
40s,
year with the
50s.
Yetis in them.
before it.
Yeah,
Something
because
like
we
that.
Or
also
not
got
last year, this year.
we got Smallfoot.
We did. I'm not
Yeah.
done talking about The Mummy.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah. You sit down, Eli.
So the Yeti come and they help fight off the bad guys. Sorry, there's something in my teeth.
and
all
then
of
they
a
try to
sudden.
murder
Yeti
Brendan
hair.
Fraser.
So no, the Yetis are the good guys. So they help them fight the bad guys, and
But
then
how can they distinguish? Don't all humans look the same?
Well,
bad guys-
there's the humans, and then there's the decrepit old mummies
Yeah.
walking around.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's the mummy.
and
Duh.
so.
Use your brain, dude.
But this was one of the best parts is through all of the chaos an avalanche starts and the Yetis like cover up the good guys as the snow falls to protect them.
I want bad Yetis. Give me the bad ones.
But I'm tempted to rewatch that movie, but I know it's just gonna make me mad because 1 and 2 are so great, and I just hate
Just treat it
that
like
3 flopped so bad.
Crystal Skull. It's an optional movie if you
But
want.
I actually like Crystal
We've talked
Skull.
about Crystal
yeah.
Skull plenty of times,
I haven't watched it in a while.
but
Yeah.
it's one of those things you can consider it an add-on, a
Yeah.
DLC to
They
the
start out pretty
trilogies
wacky,
if you want.
dude. I mean,
Yeah.
but like, people act like none of the other ones are wacky. I'm like, the Ark of the Covenant,
Yeah, I know, dude.
Temple of Doom, he like reaches like right through his skin and pulls out his heart. I'm like, if that's not weird.
Kalima.
So tell us about Smallfoot.
I didn't actually watch Smallfoot.
Oh, so did any of us
only
watch
saw
Smallfoot?
No.
I only saw parts of it when I worked at the old movie theater because I was in a position where I didn't really have to do anything, and so I would just go in for like 10-minute segments and
Oh, so you
watch
saw a
parts
little
of this
bit, though.
movie. Yeah, I saw a little
You
bit
saw
of
a
it.
small bit of small.
Some-
bit.
Basically, it's the Yeti have a myth that humans exist, Smallfoot, and it's about them figuring out that humans really do exist
Tatum,
and trying to
right?
coexist. I think so.
And LeBron James.
Yeah, LeBron
And
James.
Yeah.
Zendaya's in it.
James
Yeah.
Gordon, I think.
Probably. Might as well throw him in the mix.
He's in everything these
Yeah.
days.
He's in the Emoji Movie too.
But I guess that brings me. I have not evil Yeti, but scary Yeti in an episode of Johnny Quest.
Oh, cool. Hell yeah.
So the episode starts off. There's this like monastery and this little Sherpa village down below, and the people in the village just hear like these wails coming from the monastery, and they're like, "The Yeti have taken over the monastery.
Oh no.
We need to call Dr. Quest." And so like it's they just like go over to like visit like the Dalai Lama or something, just because.
Casual.
Just casual. And so they get there, there's a Yeti problem in the monastery, and they go there and they find these Yetis like toting machine guns and everything.
Whoa.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. But then you find out that they're people in Yeti costumes.
Oh,
They've
no.
been
So
hoodwinked.
there's like this,
white fur.
it's brown.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, it's brown.
Whoa.
But
That's
what's tight is so like Johnny Quest does his like thing. They chase one guy down. They like rip off his mask. Like, these aren't real Yeti. But then they go back to the monastery, and all the Yeti henchmen have been wiped out. And you're like, what? By who? And then you hear this wail, and they look up on the mountain just behind them, and there's like this Yeti walking, and he just disappears behind the mountain. And Dr. Quest is like, I don't believe it. Is it the real Yeti? And that's how the episode ends.
Whoa.
You're like, what?
That's pretty
But
good.
it also has brown hair. It's cool. They like
They
they
don't-
paid a little
did
bit more
their
attention
research,
than
dude. I know.
the director
You
of
ever been on the
Abominable.
Matterhorn in Disneyland, dude?
No.
No.
Oh, what about the Yeti in
I
Monsters
feel
Inc?
like I always freaking miss the
voiced
good
by
stuff
John
at
Ratzenberger?
Disneyland.
Is
You
it?
haven't been
I
on
don't-
the Matterhorn ever?
I don't know how to navigate Disneyland.
Oh
Someone
my-
needs to
the
tell me how.
Matterhorn, you go on. It's like the ice mountain,
Mhm.
the snow mountain.
I've been to Disneyland twice and haven't been on it. I don't even know where it's
okay.
at.
You-
I could walk into
It's
the
like-
park and
it's
not
like
know where I'm
dead center.
going.
Yeah, you walk down Main Street. There's the big castle. You take a slight right, go past Tomorrowland, and there's the big old mountain right
This
there.
guy.
I don't know
There's
Disneyland
like a
that well.
Yeti inside, but it's got like red eyes and blue skin.
And it's like
white
long
fur.
white fur, yeah.
And he's like,
It's scary, but it like screams really loud. It's really
Yeah.
scary.
yeah, oh, yeah, it is scary.
Yeah,
dude.
it's loud.
Oh,
And I didn't know. Sorry,
Oh,
but I didn't know before. Apparently, they have two different like entrances, like one kid's side and one adult side.
Yeah, they do.
I didn't know that.
I've been on
Have you
both.
been which side you been going on?
I don't know. This last one I went in the adult one. That's why I got so scared.
that's a scary version.
Yeah, dude, it was loud.
I want to go. I want to go.
Yeah,
Ooh,
Disneyland's
Cryptid Campfire
awesome.
takes on the Matterhorn.
Can
let's do
Cryptid
it.
Campfire go to Disneyland?
Sure, what the heck?
Yeah.
Join our Patreon so we can have the money to
Yeah, I know, right?
Donate to our GoFundMe if you want to see us vlog at Disneyland.
But there's also the Yeti in Monsters Inc.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
that's right.
It's funny because he got banished
Yeah.
from Monsters Inc. for like he like did paperwork wrong or something. So
Yeah.
they banished him, and he's got the snow cones with the yellow snow.
Yeah, that's right. He does.
He was like, it's
And he
lemon
says, "Don't
flavored."
worry.
It's funny because you talk about the Yeti legends, and the traditional legends. They're meant as warnings. They tell the kids, hey, don't go out. They're Yetis. They could eat you. But it's funny how recently there's been like 3 to 4 movies about like for kids about Yetis, and they're like, Yetis
Yeah.
are awesome. You should go
Yeah.
hug one and give it a kiss because it's like they have magical powers to make ice cream. They're great. It's just like complete.
Frozen yogurt, Alex.
Oh no, Frogo.
There was an abominable special at Yogurtland. They had special flavors and special spoons and cups, and I went specifically for that because of how much I enjoyed watching Abominable.
Are they paying you for this?
No, I just really like Chloe Bennett.
I was gonna say we should get a for Yogurtland's.
Yeah, well, I don't support shoddy research, so I'm just.
Oh. You know what? One of my I think I was thinking about we're talking about pulp culture and there's like Yetis like everywhere. He's in Johnny Quest. There's an episode of Scooby Doo where they basically meet the Yeti.
It's a movie, I think. Yeah.
There's like kids movies about it. I think one of my first real encounters with the Abominable Snowman comes from a little series in the 90s called Goosebumps.
Oh
Dun,
yeah.
dun, dun, dun.
They had an episode, The Abominable Snowman
That's
of
right.
Pasadena.
Dude, yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
In Pasadena.
Of Pasadena, yeah.
California?
Yeah, because it's
Oh, on the cover he's got brown fur, right?
he's got brown fur. It's like
Yeah.
white and brown fur, and he's got like kind of like a pink like face, and like he's
I
like
forgot.
twisting a giant lamp.
I didn't live out here when I read those, so that never really occurred to me.
This
Pasadena,
mythical
that's right.
Pasadena. But it's
Crazy.
about these kids. Their dad's like a wildlife photographer, and he's like, "All right, kids, we're going to Alaska to photograph the Abominable Snowman."
What?
Because apparently the Abominable Snowman's in Alaska.
All right.
You got the covered.
Oh, whoa, sick.
But that's it came out in 1995.
Yeah. Brown fur, dude. Nice attention to detail.
127 pages long, I might add.
Oh, dang, dude, that's a thick one, dude. It might take me a couple months.
He's no fun in the sun.
This is the back of the book. Jordan Blake and his sister Nicole are sick of the hot weather in Pasadena. Just once they'd like to have a real winter with real snow. And then it happens. The Blakes are off to Alaska. Seems Mr. Blake has been asked to photograph a mysterious snow creature there. Poor Jordan and Nicole. They just wanted to see snow, but now they're being chased by a monstrous creature. A big furry-faced creature known as the Abominable Snowman.
Oh, man.
Wild.
Yeah. On the new cover, it has white fur. Why would they do that?
Does it have white fur?
The new cover has white fur.
The new covers are trash.
Yeah, dude.
The old school covers are the best.
Old school.
Old school all the way.
Why would they do that?
It's always been better, dude. I don't know what's up with the new
But
covers.
They're
and everything.
conforming.
But it's funny because I was looking through the plot of it, and so like they go to Alaska and they meet the snowman, and then like he chases them for a while, then he just freezes in a block of ice. So
like
they
he
put
hasn't been living there?
Yeah. So they put him in a cooler and they take him back to Pasadena.
What?
But then he thaws and runs away. But they have snow, but it's magical snow that when they throw it, it like freezes things.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely wackadoo bonkers. Like
Sounds like a fun time.
Going back to the old Goosebumps, they're crazy. Like R.L. Stein was on something wild back in the day.
I tried writing him a letter when I was in elementary school because we had an assignment where we were supposed to write our favorite author, and I didn't read books when I was a kid. So I was like, yeah, Goosebumps works. Like
everyone had them, they didn't read them, but you had them for the covers.
I never got anything back.
You know, another old school book that has the Yeti in it is the first Choose Your Own Adventure book. It's about the Abominable Snowman.
How about that?
And you're like some adventurer in the Himalayas, and I don't really remember much, but I just remember that was my favorite one.
You read the book, and it's like, if you go down the pass, go to page 3. To stay, page 5. You're like, I'm going to go down the pass. An avalanche happens, and you die. You're like, oh, I had my finger on the page before.
Yeah, dude.
Cheater!
No, straight up, that's how you read those books.
Yeah. But you could see your own death before it happened.
No, one time I plotted out like every possible way using like a bunch of bookmarks, just like, you know, because like not all of them led to die, you know?
Yeah.
So like sometimes they would go on for a while, so I was just like going on every single adventure. I was living every single possible existence at the same time.
It was a multiverse.
Did you ever read them front to back without doing it?
Why would I do that? That makes no sense.
You're like, what's happening?
You never listened to them, you just read it all through. You're like, that book sucks.
I understand a word of it.
Am I dead or what?
But I think that's about it, right?
I think that's it. I mean, I think I'd say this has been a successful revisit of the Yeti.
I think we did much better this time.
It's like
for sure.
double the time, right? Almost.
Time is
it's
an
a
illusion.
Christmas special,
It's
so
a Christmas
you know,
special.
Yeah.
everyone's at home right now.
Yeah,
they're in their
enjoying it.
PJs. They're waiting for Santa to come, drinking
that
hot
eggnog,
chocolate
yeah.
or
Or white-
eggnog.
Dude, I'm gonna get eggnog
Dude,
right
yeah.
now.
Go some wassailing for good measure.
What?
Where you go caroling for booze.
Oh yeah, okay. But thanks for listening, everybody. We wish you Merry Christmas and
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
Holidays.
Merry Christmas, Happy
Um,
Holidays from Cryptid Campfire.
Mhm.
We do have to do our sign outs.
Nope,
course.
not today. No, I'm just
not-
kidding.
Nah, we're gonna.
Who are we? We're the mystery today.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, should we start?
How can I find you, Alex?
If you want to find me on Instagram and or Twitter, you can find me at AlexDaikaiju, Alex DAIKAIJU. And what about yourself?
If you want to find me online, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. It's Jasmine Maywith on both platforms, JASMINEMAEWITH.
And what about you, blonde Yeti over there with the
Whoa.
crossbow?
I'll take it. You can find me on Instagram at MyersSteffen. It's MYERSSTEFFEN.
And what about you, fella?
You can find me at the Eli Watson on both Instagram and Twitter. And you can give us a follow on our official Instagram at Cryptid Campfire.
Mm-hmm.
That's also Twitter and Facebook. And don't forget our official cryptidcampfire.com website where you can get your official merch.
Yeah.
We put emphasis on official because there were
fakes.
there were fakes.
We had official
Don't
bootlegs
buy
running
them.
We
around.
did.
We made it, baby.
Yeah.
And
then-
if you like to listen to us, you want to hear more, we got the Patreon.
Yeah, and Yeah.
You get episodes early.
Yeah.
And you get exclusive episodes that are for Patreons only.
Exactly. And
I mean, if you want to do an old school email, we got the Cryptid Campfire Podcast at gmail.com.
Yeah.
There's lots of ways to reach us, you guys.
Oh, yeah.
So many. So many.
You know what? Just call me. Here's my phone number.
It's 818 Catch a Yeti.
But thank you guys very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Happy Christmas.
Happy holidays.
See you next year, everyone.